Don't look now, but Wall Street apparently eyeing a new way to bet on the housing market. Sound familiar? Diana Olick in Washington now with the details in today's Realty Check. Over to you, Diana.
Well, that's right, Maria. This builds on the incredible demand we're seeing in the rental market. Investors have been buying up foreclosed properties, and banks, of course, have so many on their books already, some of which they're renting. Bank-owned homes are called REOs, or real estate owned. So how do you turn that rent into an even higher yield asset? Well, investors are looking at turning it into a tradable security. That's right. It would be like a mortgage-backed security with the rental streams rather than the mortgage payments providing the cash flow. So, say you're a big bank or investor and you own a bunch of foreclosed homes that you're now renting out. You pool the rental income of these homes based on rent rates and geography into a tradable security. You then sell that security to investors. Now, if the homes themselves are eventually sold, the investor could get a cut of that as well. Folks at Standard & Poor's tell us they have already been approached about rating this potential new class.
Whether the investors get paid back because everybody pays those rents and pays higher rents, that's good for investors. If investors get paid back because you're able to sell these properties because they've in fact gone up in value, that's also good for investors.
But investors will need to look at rental cash flows, property values, and here's the tricky part, property management, because that can get difficult in different areas. Now, we spoke with several investor groups already expressing interest. They include BlackRock. They say above all else, they want to see transparency. They want to know exactly what they're buying, how it's performing, and what the future performance expectations might be. Now, we've got plenty more details on this on the blog. Go to it, realtycheck.cnbc.com. Maria?
All right, Diana, we'll check on that. Wall Street's bringing back those complicated instruments in the housing market. Does Main Street even have a clue what MBS or REO mean? We asked some folks on the street.
MBS? What is MBS?
Wrong person to ask.
Mortgage-backed securities. I honestly have no idea.
I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, but I do know that the banks were very eager to give home buyers much more money than they needed.
No, I don't know about it.
Sorry, I'm not understanding.
Oh, man, don't ask me that. I have no idea.
All right, maybe that's not altogether fair, okay? But it does seem like alphabet soup for the average Joe out there. If they don't know what they're buying into, is Wall Street putting the housing market at risk once again, this time in the rental arena? Attorney Andrew Stoltmann says it's a horrible idea. University of Michigan's Michael Barr says this could be a good thing if handled the right way. Andrew, you don't like it.
It's a horrible idea. I mean, look, these REOs should be DOA. I mean, it reminds us of the old saying that it's deja vu all over again. This is simply a way to offset risk, offload it off of the balance sheet of banks and put it onto the shoulders of retail clients, and that's wrong. We've seen this movie before, and it hasn't ended well.
And yet, is it a vehicle for an income stream? Michael, talk to us about the positives that you see. Why would these vehicles be reliable income for investors?
Well, I think we have a huge backlog in the foreclosure process, a lot of real estate-owned property, REO property that needs to get cleared through. And this is one way of getting additional funding for it. It's not going to be right for every investor by any means. But I think if done fairly and transparently with appropriate incentives and skin in the game, I think it's possible that this could be an additional way of helping clear out the foreclosure backlog, and that's good for the country as a whole. It's good for the economy.
Well, what about that, Andrew? I mean, isn't there an argument to be made that this is a further, we're still in this housing mess, and this might be one way to clear out some of the inventory?
Well, I don't think there's any question that it's absolutely a way to clear out inventory, but the question becomes at what cost? I mean, we have, millions of investors who've retired, their retirement has been put on the hold because they've lost money in residential mortgage-backed securities and other similar investments, and now it seems like we're doing the same exact thing. Just because you can take something, securitize it, and sell it and offload it onto the shoulders of retail investors, that doesn't make it a good idea. That's the problem I have with it.
And Michael, there has to be some risks involved here.
Absolutely. And I think there needs to be strong investor protections. We need to make sure that the SEC is involved in making sure there's clear transparency and oversight. We want to make sure that the kinds of investors that take this on are not regular retail investors. This is a sophisticated product. It's not for all investors. And this is really just getting off the ground. So people should be very cautious. And I don't think this is the kind of thing that we should see wide parts of the country go take up as the next best new thing to do.
But Maria,
it's an important way of getting financing into the market, and it's a useful tool. We're going to get more investors involved. But this is not going to be the next big thing that we want people on the street to take up as being their great new investment.
Yeah, well, how is this different? How is this different, Michael, in terms of this being different than the bundles that we saw during the euphoria days that actually ended up crashing?
I think we had a horrible situation in the lead up to the financial crisis where securitizations were done on subprime and Alt-A mortgages without full transparency, without aligned incentives, without full documentation. You had really horrible loans being made, and you had the rating agencies really blessing things without taking a careful look, and investors stepping in without really knowing what they're doing. I think people have to be cautious and careful as we restart securitization markets, including in residential mortgages, to make sure that the strong, tough new rules in the Dodd-Frank Act are applied, that there's skin in the game, that there's capital requirements, that there's transparency and honesty and fairness in the process.
Right.
Because
Maria,
without that, we'll recreate the problem.
What about that, Andrew? Cautious and careful, but what are we supposed to do? Not have anything that has the least bit of complication to it?
No, that's not the answer. But certainly the answer isn't asking the fox to guard the hen house again. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're asking the SEC to do their job. Well, we know the SEC didn't do their job in the run-up to 2008. We're asking the rating agencies.
They don't understand it.
They don't understand it. The rating agencies have an inherent conflict of interest because they're getting paid to rate these things. We're asking banks and brokerage firms to put clients' interests first. We know they're not going to do that. So if you want the same exact recipe, the same exact formula that got us into this mess in 2008 that we're still trying to dig out of now, then absolutely go forward with this. But I think it's a horrible idea.
Can you say flat out, though, that nobody puts clients first? Come on. I mean, is that a little aggressive?
Well, Maria, we have Wall Street banks and brokerage firms almost melting down the worldwide economy, but for an $800 billion taxpayer finance bailout. So I don't think their track record is very good when it comes to putting clients' interests first.
Yeah, fair enough. Andrew? Michael?
We agree on the...
Thoughts on Andrew's comment there?
We agree on the basic causes of the financial crisis. Financial institutions took on excessive risk. In many cases, there were conflicts of interest with their clients. Retail investors got sold things they didn't understand. All of that is the case. The question now is today, with the reform rules in place, with the Dodd-Frank law passed, how do we restart the private market? How do we get financing flowing again? Do we want to live in a country in which we don't have any securitization at all? I don't think anybody's arguing for that.
I have an idea.
If we have a securitization policy, we need to have in place tough rules to make sure it's done fairly and honestly and transparently.
I have an idea. Why don't we take Bernie Madoff and Alan Stanford notes, securitize those because there'll be an interest in those, and offload them onto the shoulders of retail investors. Just because you can do it doesn't make it a good idea.
All right, we'll leave it there. Good note to end it on. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time tonight.